Hello everyone, I'm Charlotte Langmizo and I work at the HOAS University of Applied Sciences. And I'm going to present our work in progress paper, Stress and Flow Assessment during a Virtual Reality Fire Extinguishing Training. Firefighters must be trained to deal with stress. Why? Because firefighting is physically demanding. Firefighters have to wear heavy gear, they have to drag and control a heavy fire hose while extinguishing fire. It's also mentally demanding because they have to apply several technical and safety procedures. They have to assess dangers. They have to be considerate of their colleagues and casualties. To deal with stress during these procedures, they have to practice a lot. So there are some real-life training exercises, but they are very limited because they require a lot of organization. They're dangerous and also very expensive. That's why a VR fire training could be a solution to provide firefighters the opportunity to have unlimited practice, to have a safe learning environment, also a flexible learning environment where the recruits can learn at their own pace. So this is the fire training that was developed to train the recruits, and it's developed by One Bonsai. But the main question here was if they experience stress in this training like they do in real life training. That's why we did an exploratory study, where we wanted to investigate the relationship between events and stress. In this study, 8 recruits participated. 1 was female, 7 were male. They all had minor experience, and their average age was 24, and the average time of training was almost 10 minutes. So we started with dividing the training into 3 phases. So the first was the baseline. This was before entering the VR training. Then there was the first phase where they saw smoke developments and where they had to extinguish the fire. And then there was a second phase where they had to control remaining compartments to see if there still was smoke development, for instance, or also if there was fire. We used multimodal data for a stress assessment during these phases. So we used the self-reported data to assess stress and flow, but we also use physiological data, heart rate data, respiration rate data, and also skin conductance. And therefore, we used the BioPack sensors. The heart rate was significantly lower during the baseline measurements when compared to phase 1 and phase 2. There were no differences between phase 1 and phase 2 for heart rates. For respiration rates, we saw the same finding. Respiration rate was lower during the baseline measurements and higher during phase 1 and phase 2. But there were no differences between phase 1 and phase 2. For self-reported data, we saw that they did not experience stress, but that they did experience flow. So we saw an increased engagement when entering the VR training, which was good news. Although the findings were not totally like we expected because the physiological reactions were not stronger during phase 1. We thought that it would be stronger because that's very much a stressful situation as they have to extinguish the fire there. But the reason could be that the differences between phase 1 and phase 2 was not that big because phase 2 also required more physical efforts as they had to walk around to check the compartments. There are some limitations though. It's an authentic learning environment. There was a lot of guidance of the instructor. So sometimes the instructor was talking to the recruits if they didn't know their procedures and so on, asking them some questions, which could also have influenced the results or the sense of immersion. So the GSR data was distorted. That was too bad, but that was because they were using the controllers, and when using the controllers, the surface electrodes were pressed. For follow-up studies, it would be interesting to look more at the potential of the VR training for learning procedures, as we saw that there was flow and there was elevated engagement, less than actually looking if they experience stress. Also, it would be interesting to have a more controlled environment. Recruits have more or less the same prior knowledge, so there's no need for external guidance, and also an increased sample size. This would allow us to do some more complex analysis to combine multimodal data, for instance, to detect stress. Thank you for listening. If you have questions, you can always email me.